Okay, well, we've talked about the benefits, the limitations, the importance of careful interpretation, but let's talk about the big one, privacy. I mean, all this tracking and data collection, it's kind of scary, right?
Yeah, definitely. The use of cell phone data in investigations raises some huge questions about privacy rights, and those concerns are definitely not something to be taken lightly.
It's like, where do we draw the line? How do we balance the need to solve crimes and keep people safe with the right to privacy?
That's the million-dollar question,
Right.
and honestly, there are no easy
It
answers.
feels like uncharted territory, you know? We're trying to figure out how to use this powerful technology responsibly without giving up our freedoms.
And the landscape's constantly changing as technology advances, so it's an ongoing conversation.
So, can you break it down for me? What are some of the main arguments on each side of this debate?
Well, on the privacy side, people are worried about things like mass surveillance,
Right.
the idea that the government could be tracking our every move, you know, that's a pretty unsettling thought. And there are concerns about the erosion of anonymity.
Right. Like if people know they're constantly being tracked, they might be less likely to speak their minds or associate with certain groups for fear of being monitored.
Exactly. It's the chilling effect this kind of surveillance can have on freedom of expression and association.
Those are some serious concerns. But what about the arguments for using this data? What do proponents say?
Well, they often focus on the effectiveness of cell phone data in solving crimes, apprehending criminals, and preventing future harm. They'll point to cases where it's been crucial in rescuing kidnap victims, identifying terrorists, bringing dangerous criminals to justice.
So their argument is basically that the ends justify the means, that the potential benefits to public safety outweigh the risks to privacy.
Yeah, that's the gist of it. They argue that in today's world, where crime is more sophisticated than ever, law enforcement needs all the tools they can get to keep up and protect the public.
So it's that age-old debate, security versus freedom.
Exactly. And finding that right balance where we can harness technology for good without sacrificing our fundamental rights is incredibly challenging. It's a complex issue with no easy solutions.
So where do we go from here? How do we even start to address this dilemma?
Well, I think it starts with dialogue. We need open and honest conversations about the risks and benefits, the legal safeguards that are in place, and the potential consequences of our choices.
It sounds like we need a conversation that involves everyone, not just the lawmakers and the tech companies.
I totally agree. This is an issue that affects all of us, and we all need to be part of the solution.
So what can we do as individuals to stay informed and, make our voices heard on this issue?
Well, first and foremost, stay informed, read articles, listen to podcasts like this one, follow the news, and engage in discussions about these issues. Knowledge is power.
Right, be an active participant, not just a passive observer.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to reach out to your elected officials. Let them know that you care about privacy and that you want to make sure any use of cell phone data is done responsibly and within the bounds of the law.
So it's about taking ownership of the issue, not just leaving it to the experts to figure out.
Absolutely. The future of privacy in this digital age, it depends on all of us being engaged and informed citizens.
Well said. This has been such a fascinating and honestly kind of a mind-blowing conversation.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
It is, and we've only just scratched the surface. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to shift gears a bit and bring it back to the human element.
Well, that's an important point, yeah. It's easy to get caught up in the tech and the legal stuff and forget about the real people involved.
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not just about data points and algorithms, right? It's about real lives.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Behind every data point, every cell phone record, there's a human story.
Right, and those stories can be incredibly powerful. Think about the families of missing persons, clinging to every bit of hope, every lead. Cell phone data can be a huge source of comfort and guidance for those families.
It can be. It can help investigators retrace steps, identify witnesses, and potentially bring those missing loved ones home safe.
Mm.
But it can also be a source of immense frustration if it leads to dead ends or raises false hopes.
Right, it's not a guaranteed solution.
No, and it's important to remember that. The families of missing persons go through so much, the waiting, the uncertainty, it's incredibly tough.
It's a reminder that technology, for all its power, can't always provide the answers we're looking for.
That's right, and even when it does, it's crucial to use it with compassion and sensitivity. We have to recognize the human cost of these investigations.
Well said. So how do we make sure we're using this technology ethically and with sensitivity to the human impact?
I think it starts with recognizing that data isn't just a bunch of numbers. It represents real people, real lives, real relationships. It's about treating that data with respect, understanding the potential consequences of its use, and approaching these investigations with a human-centered perspective.
Balancing the need for justice with the need to protect individual rights and dignity. This has been an incredible conversation, thought-provoking, and like you said, we've only just begun to explore this complex issue. But before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. So we've talked about the tech, the laws, the ethics, but now I want to turn it over to you, the listener. How do you feel about all of this? This whole balancing act between using cell phone data to solve crimes and protecting individual freedoms. It's a big one, right?
Oh, it's huge. Absolutely.
Mm.
It really gets to the heart of what it means to live in this digital world we've created. I mean, we all want to feel safe and secure, but we also cherish our privacy and freedom.
Right,
And
right.
finding that balance using technology responsibly without sacrificing our rights, that's the challenge we're facing.
It's like walking a tightrope, isn't it? Trying to find that sweet spot between security and liberty.
That's a great way to put it. And I really believe it's a conversation that needs to include everyone, not just, the lawmakers and the tech gurus.
Mhm.
We all have skin in the game, so to speak. We all need to be part of shaping the future of privacy in this digital age.
It's interesting, when you think about it from a personal perspective, it almost feels like a trade-off. We're constantly sharing our location, who we talk to, what we're doing online, all in exchange for the convenience and, the connection that our phones provide.
Hmm.
But are we giving up too much? Are we so focused on the benefits that we're overlooking the potential costs?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer. But I do think it's incredibly important for each of us to at least be aware of the trade-offs we're making
Uh-huh.
and to be vocal about what kind of world we want to live in,
Mhm.
to advocate for policies that protect our privacy while still allowing for the legitimate use of this data.
It's about finding that balance, right? Where we can reap the benefits of technology without feeling like Big Brother's always watching.
Exactly. It's about being informed, being engaged, and most importantly, making our voices heard.
Something you said earlier really stuck with me. You talked about how data represents real people, real lives, not just numbers on a screen. And I think that's so crucial to remember, especially when we're talking about investigations that can have such a profound impact on people's lives.
It's so easy to get lost in the weeds,
Yeah.
to focus on the algorithms and the legal arguments and forget that there are real human stories behind all of this.
Right, and those stories can be so powerful.
Yeah,
Think about the families of missing persons, the victims of crimes. Their lives are forever changed by the outcomes of these investigations.
absolutely. And the use of cell phone data can be a game changer in those situations.
Right.
It can help bring closure, bring justice, bring people home, but it can also create more pain and suffering if it's not used responsibly.
That's such an important point. So how do we ensure that we're using this technology ethically, with sensitivity to the human impact?
Well, I think it starts with recognizing that data isn't just cold, hard facts. It's a reflection of people's lives, their relationships, their experiences. It's about treating that data with respect, understanding that there are real-world consequences to how it's used.
So it's not just about the technology, it's about the human element.
Exactly. It's about remembering that behind every data point, there's a story, a person, a life that deserves to be treated with dignity and respect.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation, really. I feel like we could talk about this for hours, but we're running out of time. So any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Just that technology is an incredibly powerful force and is constantly evolving, but it's up to us, all of us, to decide how we want to use it, what values we want to prioritize, and what kind of world we want to create.
Well said. We have the power to shape the future of technology, and that's both exciting and a little daunting, right? But by being informed, by asking questions, by having these difficult conversations, we can ensure that technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
Couldn't agree more.
So there you have it, folks. That's our deep dive into the world of cell phone data and investigations. We've explored the technology, the legal complexities, the ethical dilemmas, and the very real human impact. And as you can see, it's a complicated issue, one that we'll all be grappling with for years to come. But as technology continues to advance, it's more important than ever to stay informed, to be engaged in the conversation, and to advocate for policies that protect our privacy and our freedoms. Thanks for joining us, and remember, knowledge is power, but it's how we use that power that truly matters.